Back in 2003, Ubisoft published XIII, a distinctive cel-shaded first-person shooter that would go on to become something of a cult classic. While the game was by no means perfect, it did serve up an intriguing blend of stealth, mystery, and full-on action that, more often than not, made for a great time. Its comic book-styled visuals were built to last, full of bold lines and vibrant colors that continue to look fresh and exciting nearly 2 decades after the game's release. Sometimes when a game gets remade, it's taken as an opportunity to not just preserve what players remember about the original game, but also to buff out some of its flaws and make it better than ever. And XIII is indeed a flawed gem, making it an ideal candidate for this kind of treatment. Which is why it's so sad to see how Playmagic and Microids fucked it up. When the trailer for the remake dropped earlier in the year, I tempered my enthusiasm a bit based on the visuals. They seemed to lack the bold, sharp lines of the original game, and I described it as looking more airbrush than ink pen. But now that I've played the entire game, that description feels less accurate, because the game looks nothing like a comic book anymore. What you get are environments that feel like they could really be from almost any game, and characters that all look like robot sex dolls dropped into Fortnite. Especially Colonel Amos. He's got a stump for you. The game's entire aesthetic has been rendered boring now, and yet they kept unique aspects of the original game's presentation, like the word balloons, the on-screen onomatopoeias, the death panels, and such. It's just that since the game doesn't look a damn thing like a comic book anymore, those elements feel forced and jarring, sort of like the panel cuts in Ang Lee's Hulk. To give credit where it's due, there are a lot of nice environmental details and props lying around the levels that make areas of the game feel a bit more lived in than they used to. And sometimes the levels even include extra little secret areas that you couldn't get to in the original game. It's something. At the very least, it is one of those things that shows that the remake's developers had a semblance of a creative vision that they wanted to bring to the project. It's just that vision and execution are two very, very different things, and almost impressively, this game seems to completely miss the original game's creative vision, even when they're duplicating very specific scenes and moments. Take this cutscene from the original game, for instance. 4 characters are in an elevator, and the sexual tension between number 13 and Major Jones is touched upon, but since they're not alone, it's completely wordless. It's all done through the composition, animation, music, and clever use of those comic book-style panels to direct the viewer's focus. It's lighthearted, sexy, and pulled off with style. Must be the jazz. Now, here's the remake. What space alien's idea of sexy is that? The colors are freezing cold and the comic panels are gone, so the scene has to just rely on the camera movements to pull focus on those two. But these old sausages in the front can't fucking hold still, so who knows what you're actually gonna look at, and if you blink, you might just miss that stupid wink! And even if you catch it, the scene cuts off so abruptly that you can't fully register Jones's reaction, and I'm not even sure if she registered that dumbass wink! But that's okay, neither of them look like they're turned on anyways, so it used to be a spicy little moment between these two characters just comes off now as this weird, awkward, and fuck-ugly elevator Muzak joke. And the whole remake is like this. Any characteristic feeling or emotion, any sense of feeling or style that was present in the original game is just undermined now. God, and it is a game. I have to talk about the actual game parts of it now. I've spent so much time talking about the non-game parts of it because even though the soul of this game is empty now, it would still be enough for me as long as the game felt good to play, and this is where I'm disappointed in this remake the most. They had the chance to fix what was wrong with the original game, mainly the frustrating instant fail states and the kinda dumb AI, but for whatever reason, be it time, budget, general incompetence, all these problems are worse. I have seen enemies just watch each other die. I have seen them get stuck on each other. I have seen them ignore me after breaking a goddamn chair across their back. The sheer stupidity of the enemies in this game extends all the way to the boss fights, the supposedly dangerous and intelligent conspirators plotting to take over the government. Where the original game required defensive movement and considered use of your weapons, this remake pits you against a list of morons with health bars who can all be taken out in short order if you aim for the head and fire with an automatic weapon for a bit. You can probably hold still the whole time. The game doesn't give a shit, so why should you? This extends to the final battle of the game. And it's not like the weapons you kill these morons with have been improved. Here, all the weapons have weirdly sluggish animations, which are especially bad for weapons whose alt-fire modes are melee attacks. A quick smack with the back end of a shotgun is no longer a good idea at close range because of how stupidly long it takes to execute the attack. Fanning the revolver is a commitment now for some reason. Where you used to be able to just stop fanning it when you let go of the alt-fire, number 13 will now just keep going until the cylinder is empty, regardless of whether or not you let go. Save for the Universal Edition of Iron Sights, the weapon's functions just feel less useful across the board, which I could perhaps take in stride if it weren't for the game's biggest intentional gameplay sin, which is that you now have limited weapon slots. I think that this is to accommodate easier selection for a weapon wheel, but, well, screw that! Sigourney Weaver definitely didn't say the word screw right there. This is like the whole Duke Nukem Forever thing again. Introducing limited weapon slots to a series that historically doesn't have them is going to annoy players. Introducing them to a remake of the game that didn't originally have them in it is way, way worse. The levels and enemy placements are all pretty much laid out the same as they've always been, but by imposing this kind of restriction on the player, you've created a brand new balance issue, because players may find themselves put into a tough spot without the tools to dig themselves out of it, where in the original they would still have had a few cards left to play. At least, in theory, this is a problem. In practice, the most reliable way to get kills in this game is to just aim down the sights of any automatic weapon you have and shoot goons right in the brains they don't use. So, since the distinctions between weapons have been made meaningless by how badly they handle, the limitation on weapon selection ends up becoming a moot point. It's kind of amazing that some of the mistakes the developers have made in their execution can actually devour the mistakes they made in concept. I mean, fuck it, everything is meaningless. Everything is also a glitchy mess. Now, I'm actually quite fond of encountering glitches as long as they don't make it impossible to continue my progress. And if you can look past the fact that the game is sloppily grafted onto the reanimated bones of your suffering loved ones who only wanted the quiet relief of death, then this game does deliver some entertaining jank. Unfortunately, a great deal of that jank can make it difficult to impossible to advance without needing to restart a checkpoint or sometimes an entire level. But from wiggling bodies, bad guys phasing through doors, teleporting generals, to accidentally duplicating the US president, the XIII Remake is genuinely enjoyable when taken as a mess. But I didn't want a mess. I wanted 13, updated, polished to an even brighter shine, and hopefully, just hopefully, good enough to renew interest in a sequel. What I got was this, and what I lost was $40, 9 hours of my life, and any hope of that sequel happening. I'm still not quite sure why this game came out in this state. It just wasn't ready. It was barely functional. The bulk of this game's failures appear to come from both a lack of money and from a basic inability to understand the magic that made the original so memorable, and perhaps unsurprisingly, the end result is a strange and embarrassing creature. The work of people whose reach clearly exceeded their grasp, wanting to touch the glittering and colorful wonder set before them, but able to do nothing more than flail at it, like a penguin on crack.
You're a good sport, so thanks for the support. You're a good sport, so thanks for the support. You're a good sport, so thanks for the support. You're a good sport, so thanks for the support. You're a good sport, so thanks for the support. You're a good sport, so thanks for the support.